Director and Program Director of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on the Smiley Audio Media KBLA 1580 radio station. She is the host of Reflectivity, our weekly series on Fat Meat Fridays, a graduate of Hampton University with a Bachelor of Arts in Mass Arts and Journalism. Gina has earned her Master of Arts in Theology and Social Justice from Princeton Theological Seminary. She co-produced award-nominated documentary Hampton University, One of the Wonders of the World, and as a songwriter, co-produced and performed her single, Yes, hit number 26 with a bullet on Billboard. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays.
And hello, Jesse Jackson Jr. It is a Friday.
It certainly is.
But I didn't get paid. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Johnny Kemp, that was our guy back in the day. No doubt about it. Gina, it's Fat Meat Fridays. What a long week we've had.
Man, it's been a great week, though. That's what I was just telling you before we came on. It's tired, but it's a good tired.
Gina, our very special guest in this hour is none other than Bishop Joseph William Tolton, who is the founder and president of Interconnected Justice, which was established in 2019. The strategic intent of the organization is to be a force uniting global racial justice movements in which the continent of Africa and its diaspora build an ecosystem of self-defined and determined advocacy. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It is always good to be with you, Brother Jackson, and certainly good to see you as well and be with you, our dear sister Gina.
Bishop, what a pleasure it was to be at the Congressional Black Caucus this past week or so, and to see you there, and to have one of our wonderful guests, G, actually step out of the screen into the flesh, yes, and to press the flesh with them. Bishop, what a pleasure it was to meet you, and I'm certainly glad that we all finally made your acquaintance.
Oh, indeed. It was excellent to be with you, my brother, for sure.
Bishop, I have a question. We've got about three and a half minutes or so before we the Congressional Black Caucus. They were gathering under some extraordinarily unusual circumstances. As you well know, it's certainly a difficult period to be an African American in this country at this hour. But it's really clear to me that the Congressional Black Caucus, our representatives of Washington, are under a particular stress as well. Bishop Tolton.
There's no doubt that that is absolutely the case. It was excellent to be there. And let me just provide a couple of reflections. First, before I speak to the event itself or the contributions of any of our formidable members of the Congressional Black Caucus, I think the thing that was most impressive to me was the presence, the enthusiasm, and the sense of focus among the attendees. I think it's important for Black America and beyond to know that there is an African American vanguard that is not afraid, that is clear about the assignment, that is educated about the issues, that is deeply committed to whatever our what's next is going to look like as African Americans. And I want to salute every person who was there, standing on the front lines, lifting up the banner of justice for African Americans and for Americans at large. So I'm encouraged first and foremost by that. I think that the event overall was incredibly substantive. I thought that those that were presenters gave a very strong analysis. I thought that people did not pull punches and try to sugarcoat their analysis, but they were very raw and very clear about what our current realities are. I lift up the session with Joy Reid and Maya Wiley and Bishop Barber, in which I thought that their analysis on where we are in this road to authoritarianism was one in which they sounded the alarm, but they also gave us hope. And again, I think it's really important that we're clear about identifying the moment that we're in and being very sober while we're yet hopeful. I thought that the conversation with the mayors was probably one of the best conversations that I witnessed, because they are absolutely on the front lines. And to see their conviction, to see the manner in which they're exchanging strategies and sharing notes, I thought was also extremely, extremely encouraging. I thought that the work that was done around connecting us to the continent, which of course Congressman Jackson led that particular section, was also excellent. to hear the Minister of Foreign Relations from South Africa speak very clearly about the fact that South Africa is now the antithesis, as I quote him, to what America is becoming. And this is causing some of the tension between South Africa and America, and that they're doubling down on their commitment to being a showcase democracy moving forward. And I think a protectorate for people of African descent globally was just extraordinary. So I thought that the substance was good, really, really strong analysis. And I certainly do have some critiques, but I'll stop there for the moment.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Me Fridays. Gina, you want to take us out?
Well, first, I want to just comment on what Bishop said. I agree wholeheartedly about all of the sessions that I was in. And you know what? Joy Reid seems so much more free.
Yes.
Since she, and I guess everybody is. Don Lemon is more free. Not that they were ever necessarily holding back, but you do have to be mindful in the situations that you're in at all times when you are employed by someone else. And I think that's why Generation Z is so intent on being entrepreneurs, because they want to be free to speak. So when we come back, we'll have more conversation with Bishop Tolton. Take us out, Jesse.
On KBLA Talk 1580, when we come forward, more with Bishop Tolton.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement.
Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered-down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever, with eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
With Robinhood, not only can you trade individual stocks and ETFs, you can also seamlessly buy and sell crypto. at low costs. Trade all in one place. Get started now on Robinhood. Trading crypto involves significant risk. Crypto trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Crypto LLC. Robinhood Crypto is licensed to engage in virtual currency business activity by the New York State Department of Financial Services. Crypto held through Robinhood Crypto is not FDIC insured or SIPC protected. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Securities trading is offered through an account with Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, a registered broker-dealer.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. to Fridays on KBLA Talk 1580 on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in the first hour is Bishop William Tolton. Bishop Joseph William Tolton, as an LGBTQ global faith leader, Bishop Tolton continues to serve as the Bishop of the Global Ministries for the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries. In this capacity, he designs and manages the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, Justice Ministries, and collaborations outside of the United States with a focus on East Africa. Bishop Tolton works directly with leaders to build integrated justice movements, connecting activists with civil society advocates, media professionals, academics, and political leaders. Bishop, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Blessings, blessings, blessings.
So glad you're here. Gina, it's still Fat Meat Fridays.
It still is. And this time last week, we were discussing earlier at the Congressional Black Caucus, and I think there was just, as Bishop talked about, there was just so much meat.
Yeah.
I would like to kind of maybe cover that a little bit more and put it in the skillet and let it sizzle.
Bishop, let me ask you this question. The overall environment of the CBC, I could feel, and I think the entire caucus could feel, Trump's presence.
Yes.
The National Guard on the ground in Washington, D.C., at the National Airport, at the train station. So coming in, there's this feeling of their presence. It was clear to me that the sponsorship of the Congressional Black Caucus, corporate sponsorship that is, appeared to be significantly less than what I've experienced in the past. There was I don't want to use the word somber, but I really can't think of anything different. Anytime Jim Clyburn hosts a panel on Reconstruction, and of course, the first 16 African Americans who served in Congress, 14 were in the House, 2 in the U.S. Senate. But by the turn of the century, after the Tilden-Hayes Compromise and the Plessy decision, there were 0 blacks in Congress. So Jim Clyburn is obviously sounding an alarm bell himself. That there is this sense that each member is fighting for themselves, rightfully so. They're all in the same election cycle. I'm concerned in a post-John Lewis world that the cohesion around the Voting Rights Act of 1965 itself is not what it used to be. As Democrats focus on preserving and regaining their majorities, there seems to be less and less talk about the central act that is responsible for the Congressional Black Caucus being there in the first place. Bishop?
Indeed. I thought that it was very interesting that Congressman Clyburn did have that particular session. I think that the Congressional Black Caucus has some soul searching to do. In that, is the CBC going to be the entity of, and I don't mean any slight here, but I think we have to have this conversation. Is it forever going to be the legacy of an Adam Clayton Powell, or are we going to become an organization that lifts up the values of Assata Shakur and a Barbara Jordan? I think that is the decision that we have to make. Are we here to heal the divide that we have within the Democratic Party and potentially heal the divide with more moderate Republicans? Or are they going to be the party of resistance that is demanding a radical justice? And I think that by inviting younger voices into the conversation, that is going to push us in the direction or push the CBC in the direction of really moving the Democratic Party to step up and be the party of resistance, not the party that is purely one of reconciliation, looking for a way back to power in which they can put up with some of the moderate Republicans. But are they going to make a commitment to really blowing up the whole thing? Because essentially at this point, it's half blown up as it is. But blowing up the whole thing, that we might reimagine something radically different and radically new. That is, I think, the opportunity that the CBC still has. Let me just give you an example of what was missing.
Take your time.
There was no clear conversation about the ways in which white Christian nationalism, a religious-based operation, has morphed into such a strong and formidable political operation. And how are we going to combat that using the tools and the technology of faith as it relates to how faith can inform our politics? That conversation wasn't there. I think that that's really important to lift up. I think it's hard to identify and locate that conversation because we still have many in the Black church who are still kind of holding on to being connected to the broader world of American evangelicalism. Gardner Taylor, one of the greatest African-American preachers, many years ago said, he predicted that Black religionists, and he said Black religionists, not Christians, could be the antidote to white Christian nationalism if we have not been so grafted into America's commercialism. And so again, I think that that is a moment of soul searching for the Congressional Black Caucus to yet become even more aggressive in pushing that particular agenda. I've been moving through the CBC talking to several offices, and most offices do not know what dominionism is. They don't know what the Seven Mountain Mandate is. They're not clear about the religious ideology and the historicity of the modern MAGA movement really having its roots going back to the early 1970s. So there's an opportunity there. The second thing that was clearly missing was an opportunity about a new economic pathway forward. And I mean a radical sense of confronting the ways in which America's capitalism has gone so off the rails that actually it was our gross income inequality, which has only snowballed over the last 25 years, that I think on many levels, in conjunction with Obama's election and a Black man being in power, those two things really led us to a point where we could have a white supremacist despot now in the White House. I didn't hear any conversations about democratic socialism or the ways in which the party is grappling with its support or lack of support of Mondami and some of the other Mondamis that are certainly going to be coming along. So putting forth a new radical economic agenda and even flirting with some of the principles and ideals and tactics and thoughts of democratic socialists, which I certainly embrace. I think that there's another huge opportunity there. The last thing I'll say, I didn't see a lot of conversation about fusion coalitions. I would love to have seen some panels bringing our Hispanic and Latino brothers to the table to have a conversation about the way in which on some levels our broader social justice agenda was abandoned. And this myth of an innate coalition between Black and brown people did not manifest at the ballot box in November, and that was a real problem for us. Not enough conversations about that, even bringing some of our Asian brothers and sisters to the table to have and siblings to the table to have a conversation about the ways in which Asians were used as the face of overthrowing and torpedoing affirmative action because of their complaints of Asians not being fully represented based on their academic performance and test scores. I think that that is another really big conversation. And certainly there was no conversation about the demonization of trans folks and the weaponization of human sexuality as a ploy to further destabilize our democracy, and the ways in which faith-based entities have manipulated theological understandings of human sexuality and queer realities at large in the Black church to create a bit of a wedge within the Black church and its full-on commitment to progressive ideals and to the Democratic Party. So more direct engagement around white Christian nationalism certainly more direct engagement around democratic socialism and more direct engagement about the possibilities of fusion coalitions and working at the intersections, I think are three opportunities for the Congressional Black Caucus to lean in to these three areas moving forward.
Bishop Tolton, did you leave anything off the list? I mean,
to what I'm
is
trying
there
to tell you
anything
about
left
Meat Friday.
of the CBC after that critique?
I had to break that down to not a steak, but a rib bone. And so we got to go bone by bone. And hopefully, there was some meat on those bones. Yeah.
Wow. And you know what? That's the truth.
Yeah.
What I heard from Bishop Tolton was the truth. I mean, that was what was undermining, I think, the foundation of the weekend. And I think that the honesty and the integrity with which you just articulated exactly what was missing. I mean, I was disappointed, I'll be candid with you, with the clergy gathering symposium, which, kind of gave probably 100, maybe 200 clergy persons 1 minute,
a private session,
to say one thing that's on their mind or something. I had the great privilege of meeting DeMark Liggins, the new president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and we were on an event for Congresswoman Terry Sewell, and I asked him, as the new president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the organization founded by Martin Luther King Jr., had he given any thought to a Northern Christian Leadership Conference, an Eastern Christian Leadership Conference, a Western Christian Leadership Conference, which would really be and serve as a kind of training ground for a critique to white Christian evangelicalism. I mean, we've seen the tragic events of Utah a few weeks ago, having led to literally thousands of chapters, highways being named after the victim, National Day of Mourning, half-staff flags, and a momentum of political activity that is the byproduct of that tragic event. But we can't separate, as Jim Clyburn said on MSNBC, the legacy from the way the man lived and what he said and how he felt about people. But yet there's an organization growing. And I don't see, Bishop, and I'll turn this over to Gina at this point, I just don't see our organizations adjusting and rising to the politically conscious level of the critique that you just offered. And they're not transforming themselves from these old kind of legacy institutions to the modern organizations that are necessary to protect the interests of our people. Gina?
Absolutely. I agree with that as well. I want to go back to your conversation about what it is to be in Congress at this point, and do we have to blow it all up to get it to start over again? The picture that came into my mind was the sit-in where Pastor Bobby Rush, Pastor John Lewis, we have clergy, and we always have been, who were also members of Congress. And I tried to imagine what it would be like in this day to have a sit-in on the floor, to come from their seats and sit the way that they have, when we have witnessed a sitting senator being thrown to the ground, hands behind his back, the censuring of Congressman Al Green, what it would look like if they tried to have such a sit-in. I mean, it's one thing for Hakeem Jeffries to be 28 hours or what have you on the House floor, but something a little more provocative at this particular point. I'm not sure what the reception would be and how it would be received in the community if we had to witness someone being beaten or carried away in an inappropriate manner out of Congress. So that was one thing that really struck me about, where do we go from here?
Bishop, we have about a minute and 45 seconds before we come forward. Bishop?
There is a need for more theater here. And the theater is not to entertain us, but the theater is to ignite the passions of our people, to mobilize their affections for justice, that we might see them actually now awoke. And one of the things that I thought we certainly could have done was just had a moment where we just celebrated the fact that we are reclaiming the word woke and what it means to be woke in our communities. So there is a need for far more theater, but not theater to entertain us, but theater to ignite us, to inspire us, to educate and to mobilize our people at the grassroots level.
I am reminded in this moment of Joe Madison. May he rest in peace. The late Joe Madison said of Colin Kaepernick that it is required that in order to have any progress, there must be sacrifice.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Our very special guest is none other than Bishop Joseph Tolton. Bishop Tolton has been an extraordinary contributor and analyst for the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. So grateful for his participation and looking forward to so much more of his wisdom on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Bishop Tolton and Gina Towns when we come forward.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard with BIN News Now. Sean Diddy Combs' sentencing hearing is underway in New York City. Supporters of Combs are both outside and inside the court as fans and families streamed in for a front row seat. Here's what some outside were saying.
I would like to see him get out. He spent a lot of time in jail so far.
Me personally, I think he's going to come home today. I think there's no reason to keep him in jail anymore. 14 months has been a long time.
Prosecutors are seeking 11 years in prison while Combs' team is seeking time served. Meantime, the ongoing partial government shutdown is in day 3. President Trump has vowed to conduct federal layoffs, while Black Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries told MSNBC he's still waiting for negotiations with Republicans to ensure health care funding for Americans stay intact. And finally, Mass Appeal and Marvel are joining forces to create an exclusive limited edition comic book series honoring some of hip-hop's biggest artists. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay left himself open for relentless second guessing. He took a major gamble on his team Thursday night at SoFi, and it had a disastrous result. The Rams ended up losing in overtime to the San Francisco 49ers 26-23. With 5 minutes left in the overtime, the Rams had a 4th and 1 at the 49ers 11. Instead of giving Joshua Carty a chance to kick a very short field goal to tie the game, McVay went for it on 4th down. Rams running back Kyron Williams was stopped short of the first down, giving the 49ers an emotional win. The Rams were 8.5-point favorites. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said Shohei Ohtani will be the team's starting pitcher tomorrow in Game 1 of their playoff series against Philadelphia. In Ohtani's last 3 starts, he is not allowed to run in 14 innings of work and has 18 strikeouts. He looks ready for the postseason. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA listeners. This is Dr. Paul Wallace. I want to discuss a type of eczema called atopic dermatitis, which is often misdiagnosed in Black children and adults. Atopic dermatitis is an autoimmune disorder that can be accompanied by food allergies, hay fever, and asthma. This rash targets the inner arms, behind the knees, and face, but can go all over the body. It causes excessive dryness and 24/7 itching. It's the scratching and steroid use that leads to permanent scarring. I'm enrolling patients in a new clinical research study focused on better treatment options for atopic dermatitis. Of course, your medication and travel reimbursements are provided. To see if you qualify, visit dermstudies.com or call us at 323-296-0048. That's 323-296-0048. There's nothing worse than itching. Let's take the next step in controlling this problem.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach.
Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Junior Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays, where our host, Gina Towns, is with us regularly on Friday, summarizing and reviewing our week. Gina, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Jesse. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Our very special guest, Bishop Tolton. Bishop Joseph William Tolton graduated from Vassar with a BA in religion and also earned an MBA from Columbia University Business School. The bishop's passion for connecting Black Lives Matter and Pan-Africanism flows from his deep convictions that the global project of our lifetime is to dismantle white supremacy and to deconstruct patriarchy. Bishop Tolton believes that this is the spiritual project that demands highly connected secular activism. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you, dear brother Jesse, and my dear sister Gina.
It is always our great pleasure to have you, Bishop. Gina, just before the break, and during the break, you were talking about sacrifice, and the bishop touched upon it in your thinking. Share with us a little bit more about that, and then let's engage the bishop.
Well, beyond who I used to call my pal, I loved Joe Madison so much because he would always say, let's put it where the goats can get it. And so when we think about, him talking about Colin Kaepernick making the sacrifice that he was making, and we can take this on into Jesus and the sacrifice of dying on the cross for whatever that means to any individual. But there are sacrifices, and it's unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it cannot produce any fruit. And so in this day, I think what I was telling Jesse was that we have become so tired of sacrifice. I think, and the truth of the matter is, I think we can never really get tired of sacrifice. We choose the things that we want to sacrifice for and about. And I think it's just almost unfathomable that we have to consider what needs to be done right now. And so therefore there may be a stall in movement.
Bishop?
I think that there is a stall in our movement right now because African Americans feel incredibly betrayed. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I was born right at the end of '67, and I know that I've talked about it on this show with you all before, 4 months before Dr. King was killed. And so for these years, I have lived under the banner of the civil rights movement, and as our dear sister Sherilyn Eiffel says, we have all feasted from the fruit of trees that we did not plant. We believed that white America was to some degree on the side of liberation and justice. And the ways in which we have seen the elite capitulate, the ways in which we have seen or heard deafening silence, even from some of the white moderates, particularly white moderates of faith, in rebuke of the Trumpian agenda, and the ways in which I think we have just heard deafening silence from white folks about the crippling racism and trauma that African Americans are experiencing. And I believe that much of this is because we do not desire to make the sacrifices necessary for equity and for justice. Let me lift it up as a gay cisgendered male who understands, as in all of my clerginess, that despite some of the descriptors of who I am, I still have male privilege in this world. And I do operate with that privilege. So there are moments where when I have to check my male privilege and be willing to sacrifice something, whether it's my participation on a panel because they needed to have gender balance, whether it's my presenting a keynote because they needed the perspective of a woman. But there are times when I will have to sacrifice for the sake of the restitution of gender equity and gender balance. And I can say that as a cisgendered male who understands his male privilege. I think that the conversation with white America today is, when will you be willing to sacrifice so that there is equity? And the reason that we know that they're not operating in good faith is that if you understand the ways in which this country disenfranchised us, it is obvious that the purpose of the civil rights movement was to provide restitution. We didn't get reparations like everybody else gets. We merely were asking for some restitution. If that restitution was afforded us, you are not operating in good faith if you then decide that you're going to vilify and demonize the infrastructure upholding that restitution, things like affirmative action and DEI. So we know that you're not operating in good faith. We know that you did not have a commitment to our equity and justice, because even if you felt as if the time for equity and inclusion and a leveling of the playing field, that was past because all things were equal now, you would approach our community in the spirit of a conversation. You would approach us with an analysis and with data. You would approach us with a desire and a hope for that level playing field to actually be. And then in conversation with you, we might be able to then persuade you that, in fact, the movement toward equity and justice has not been completed. And so we might need to amend some of the infrastructure, but not certainly destroy it and upend it altogether. There is an absolute lack of a desire to sacrifice for the incredible economic gains that were made in this country on the backs of slaves. There is no desire to sacrifice.
I'm wondering, Bishop, the extent to which caste and our own serves as a filter where we can't see the problem as African Americans. So let me try and flip some of what you said and engage your thinking on this. On the one hand, our brown brothers and sisters had the option to vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, and they voted for Kamala Harris. On the other hand, some of our brown brothers and sisters entered the United States not just seeking opportunity, but pursuing a kind of white identity, right? On the other hand, if you can have a multiple-handed octopus, if you will, I see our African Americans in many of these urban areas are arguing that, the Hispanics are taking our jobs, and so they have no problem inviting ICE and the National Guard into our communities where they are wreaking holy hell and havoc in many of our communities. Just 3 blocks from my home, a major ICE raid at 2:00 in the morning a few nights ago that made national news. I'm wondering the extent to which the arguments we make for our brown brothers, as there's a filter that we of our seeing them as something other than with the same humanity that we are challenged to see ourselves. And then, of course, even with the LGBTQ community, the long struggle within the church for us to recognize and acknowledge our own brothers and sisters, whether it's in the pulpit or whether it is their preferences and their life preferences, and efforts to exclude them from the Gospels themselves. I'm wondering the extent to which caste is a blinder, Bishop.
We definitely participate. We definitely pursue this arena oftentimes, I believe, as Black people believing that there is that there is something proprietary about our particular suffering, that we brand our particular suffering in a particular way. And because we have not had a proper redress, I do think that colors our thinking as it relates to having empathy, compassion, and creating bridges to be able to connect with others who are also victims of a particular type of oppression. I also think that there's something very unique about American expectations. We all believe in this idea of being able to participate in the American dream, but that has become much more of a myth, so that there is also tremendous frustration that Americans feel when they're not able to move up the ladder economically. That frustration then gets turned on others who are seeking to ascend, as opposed to focusing on a system that is unjust at its core.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. This is Fat Meat Fridays with none other than Gina Towns, our regular host. Gina, why don't you take us out?
So when we come back, I do want to talk about the notion of the fact that when we come forward, I want to talk about the notion that people get upset when we vote our collective interest, when we discuss our collective interest, and how it feels to not have our collective interest addressed when we find other people that come and ride the back of the civil rights movement and the conflict that creates. We'll be right forward.
I know. It took me
when we come forward, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, you'll reach Fat Meat Friday. We'll be with Bishop Tolton when we return.
KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans? With credit card debt at all-time highs, Debt Relief Advocates is urgently notifying consumers of debt relief now being made available, designed to aid consumers with out-of-control credit card debt. Those who qualify and enroll for this relief program will only have to pay back a fraction of what they owe. This is not bankruptcy or a debt consolidation loan. This is a relief program that credit card companies would rather you not know about, as it ends your debt nightmare and saves you lots of money. Consumers owing at least $10,000 in credit card debt or personal loans can now take advantage of this debt relief as the cost of living skyrockets. Debt Relief Advocates has established a relief hotline for you to call to learn what debt reduction you may qualify for, so don't wait. For this free information, call the Relief Hotline at 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493, 800-515-4493.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest is none other than Bishop Joseph William Tolton and Gina Towns on Fat Me Fridays. Gina, welcome forward.
Well, welcome forward. And I wanted to just tell a little bit of a joke. So when Jesse first started his show, he kept saying, when we come back. And Tavis Smiley is really strict on, I don't like going back. We are moving forward. And so Jesse had to learn how to say, when we come forward, you'll be on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And so now I'm learning to say, when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I feel really good. That was really good, G.
Did you like that? All right, let's get back to Bishop Tolton, because the other thing that we talked about during the break, Bishop Tolton, was that we couldn't even get back to the rib bones, that you so concisely covered one thing after another that we really do want to dig into. One of the things that I talked about was when he was in Congress, and you had to have some sort of resistance, and there's never been a need necessarily for resistance, though there's difficult times in certain administrations. More so than others. When we look at the Great Society, I wonder what LBJ would say. But it's almost, we've repealed that whole thing right there, and you almost are stripped of your First Amendment right to protest, to speak against. What is it that you would recommend for those members of Congress right now? Let's go back to that part of your rib bones.
I think that they have to lead forward. Oftentimes, people in Congress are looking for outsiders to then lead them. I think that they have to lead forward. And I want to take a little bit of a step back and kind of speak to some of the themes and ideas that I think members of Congress need to be able to press forward. And it does start with us being far more comfortable with the historicity of the moment that we're in and placing it into that broader context. Brother Jamal Bowie wrote a wonderful piece in the Times entitled, "They Don't Want to Live in Lincoln's America." Just thought it's really important for us to understand that the first republic that was born was a white patriot revolution.
Absolutely.
And it was designed to be exclusive. It was designed to protect exploitation. Slavery worked for them economically and politically. After the Civil War, we had a chance to replace the First Republic and rip out the guts of white supremacy and anti-Blackness from the core of our political and legal system. So going back to the Congressional Black Caucus, I think that they've really got to beat the drums of anti-Blackness as it relates to how anti-Blackness is at the core of the ideology of a Project 2025, which takes us all the way back to this moment in which Lincoln tried to offer a new birth of freedom, a second republic rooted in a multiracial democracy, constitutional equality, and a direct reckoning with power. This was not our original founding. Lincoln had a vision for public education, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, and Blacks in Congress, etc. Andrew Johnson destroyed that vision. He pardoned the rebels, dismantled the Reconstruction, gutted the 13th and 14th Amendments, and liberal Republicans chose healing over justice. Rutherford B. Hayes came in. he completely abandoned Black Americans and the Second Republic, and he was in fact our first MAGA president. I think that the Congressional Black Caucus has an opportunity to really lift up the truth that we have returned to a white patriot revolution a la January 6th, where rebellion has become patriotism, oppression looks like tradition, resisting equality looks like defending freedom, denying history looks like it's preserving unity. And justice seems to threaten the nation and not be what makes the nation possible. And that is because we never gutted ourselves of the whiteness that is at the heart of the white patriot revolution, and we need a new birth of freedom. So I think instead of protecting the entity that we have called America, that the Congressional Black Caucus has to become a little bit more, has to have a little bit more steel in their spine about the fact that we've got to go back and deal with the fact that we've never confronted this white patriot revolution.
You know, I often say that, Bishop, that's a very, very profound point, that no July 4th in the United States of America is the same.
Yeah.
July 4th, 1776, this white patriot revolution that you speak about begins a process of defining July 4ths ad infinitum. July 4th, 1776 was an all-white male proposition, and certainly July 4th, 1788, just a few short months after the founding of the Constitution, they felt some kind of way about Black people, right? They felt some kind of way about women, about obviously the LGBTQ, and about Hispanics and Native Americans. They felt some kind of way, but something happened. Something happened in 1863 on July 4th in Gettysburg. And with more than 60,000 men dead or dying or severely injured, including dismembered, Lincoln would come back in November of that year to dedicate the Gettysburg Dead. And he redefined July 4th going forward. It's impossible for the modern era to imagine what July 4th, 1776 was like, or July 4th, 1787, or July 4th, 1792, because you can't intellectually, living in modern America, overcome the definition of July 4th that Lincoln left us with, what we were becoming, what we were trying to be. I insisted on speaking in Gettysburg. Gina and I were there during the Kamala Harris, Donald Trump campaign, because I thought that Gettysburg would have been a fantastic opportunity for Kamala Harris to share with us what future July 4ths could look like if we don't vote. A Kamala Harris Gettysburg address, if you will. I say that because once you mention this opinion piece, they don't want to live in Lincoln's America. That's real stuff, Bishop.
That's right.
That's real stuff.
There's no question about that. And it's interesting that you brought up the presidential race, because one of the things I was always hoping that the vice president, our Democratic presidential candidate, did more of was actually present a vision of what America could be under her administration. I think you had to paint the picture of what America was going to be under this current administration, but a new vision for a multiracial democracy in the 21st century that could be powered by technology in a productive and not a deconstructive way. I do think that opportunity was missed. The idea of really lifting up the benefit and the value of a multiracial democracy outside of just kind of the conventional understanding of DEI, but really lifting up the fact that our multiracial democracy is the fulfillment of the glorious idea called America.
Gina, I know that we're going to be running out of time shortly, but I want to ask you, if you don't mind, extending the invitation to the bishop to pray that he hangs with us another segment into the second hour.
Well,
just another segment.
I went forward in that earlier. And so I do believe that Bishop Tolton has a little time to stay with us into our second hour. We're going to end the first hour, but I do want to come back to September 6th of 1787 and discuss a little bit more about the convention that took place, because I've come to figure out that there's a difference between people who attended that convention, who actually framed the Constitution and some of what the discussion was. And I think that makes a difference because we have that within our own community. It's going on right now. It never stops. Just because somebody is kind of in the same ballpark that you are doesn't mean you agree on everything and how they get to each base. Jesse Jackson Jr. will be forward in the next hour with his guest, Bishop William Joseph Tolton.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. More with Bishop Joseph William Tolton. I'm hoping I'm getting the first name and middle name correct. More with Bishop Tolton and Gina Towns on Fat Meat Fridays when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Esther Dillard with BIN News Now. Sean Diddy Combs' sentencing hearing is underway in New York City. Supporters of Combs are both outside and inside the court as fans and families streamed in for a front row seat. Here's what some outside were saying.
I would like to see him get out. He spent a lot of time in jail so far.
Me personally, I think he's going to come home today. I think there's no reason to keep him in jail anymore. He's 14 months has been a long time.
Prosecutors are seeking 11 years in prison while Combs' team is seeking time served. Meantime, the ongoing partial government shutdown is in day 3. President Trump has vowed to conduct federal layoffs, while Black Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries told MSNBC he's still waiting for negotiations with Republicans to ensure health care funding for Americans stay intact. And finally, Mass Appeal and Marvel are joining forces to create an exclusive limited edition comic book series honoring some of hip-hop's biggest artists. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay left himself open for relentless second guessing. He took a major gamble on his team Thursday night at SoFi, and it had a disastrous result. The Rams ended up losing in overtime to the San Francisco 49ers 26-23. With 5 minutes left in the overtime, the Rams had a 4th and 1 at the 49ers 11. Instead of giving Joshua Carty a chance to kick a very short field goal to tie the game, McVay went for it on 4th down. Rams running back Kyron Williams was stopped short of the first down, giving the 49ers an emotional win. The Rams were 8.5-point favorites. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said Shohei Ohtani will be the team's starting pitcher tomorrow in Game 1 of their playoff series against Philadelphia. In Ohtani's last 3 starts, he is not allowed to run in 14 innings of work and has 18 strikeouts. He looks ready for the postseason. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in the last hour and joining us in this segment is Bishop Joseph William Tolton, founder and president of Interconnected Justice, which was established in 2019. The strategic intent of the organization is to be a force uniting global racial justice movements in which the continent of Africa and its diaspora build an ecosystem of self-defined and self-determined advocacy. You're joining us on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns, president and CEO of 519 Productions, the executive producer, creator, and director and program director of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Smiley Audio Media, KBLA Talk 1580. Gina, Bishop Tolton.
When we left, now that we are forward, we talked about hanging around August 6, 1787, which was the draft of the Constitution, and then September 17th, in which there was a final act of 1787. And I want us to maybe do some work on this together, Bishop Tolton, and then come back another time so that we can really talk about this at length, because just like what's going on, this whole movement, this MAGA movement, this Christian nationalist movement started from a Tea Party movement, became a Freedom Caucus, became something else. There are people there that don't agree with everything that everybody else is doing, but they remain because they have a common interest. And that's the same thing that occurs with us. When we go to vote in the African-American community, we may not like everything that we hear on that platform. And it has been a Democratic platform for a while, but we vote our common interest, even when we have to turn a blind eye to someone else. And it really, when we're looking for people to come to the table and to our rescue, to our aid, and to step out, which, obviously Martin Luther King was doing from his letter in a Birmingham jail, trying to get clergy, it has to be the church. Because the one common thing, and this is where I believe we can call that Christian nationalist thing out, is if you say you believe Jesus, then that's the common factor, and there is no division in him.
Bishop, just before you comment, I want to share with you that when I was incarcerated, I made a discovery while in solitary confinement, a theological experiment that the architects themselves participated in long before they wrote the Constitution of the United States. It's something called the finger of God. There is a word construction in the Constitution that is the foundation of their, quote, civil religion of the United States of America. For the Founding Fathers, the highest form of religion was the religion of Jesus. For them, there was no religion like Jesus before Jesus. There was no religion like Jesus after Jesus, and therefore they called their religion the sect of one. They called Jesus's religion unique unto himself, that he's the only person who's ever lived out the true precepts of his religion. He called it the sect of one. And so the expectation at the hour of the birth of Jesus is that he would come from the house of David. He would come in the lineage of David. Matthew 1, verse 1 through 17, who begat. But that verse 17 talks about the generations between David and Jesus. David and Jesus. Well, when you look at the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, it becomes really, really clear when you look at the sect of one, that is, the presidency of the United States, that the commander of the army, David, and the person who grants reprieves and pardons in Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, has a unique responsibility that we've not discovered as Americans. This person functions in the lineage of David. They extracted Matthew 1, verse 17 from verse 17, and they put it in there as a function. And therefore, they, in their minds and thinking, were electing someone who would function in the lineage of David for them. 28 generations between David, the commander of the army and the militia, and the repriever pardoner, one Jesus of Nazareth. They stopped waiting for Jesus to come back. They formed a civil religion that later had to be amended by 1791. Gina and I can't wait to show you the work that she did at Princeton Theological Seminary. I can't wait to show you the work that I wrote about when I exited from prison on this subject, because I've come to understand evangelicalism. I've come to understand American Christology fundamentally different because of the civil religion that they founded. And for them, every 4 years represents a new generation. And therefore, these generations matter to the continuity of their civil religion. Bishop, I put a lot on you, but I thought I'd drop it on you.
Wow, that is a lot. How interesting. I was not aware the degree to which there was language in the Constitution that did directly tie itself directly to the idea of David and David's connection to the Christ. What's interesting about that, of course, is that David was a great military leader. And we don't talk a whole lot about the context in which Mary was visited by the angels, about the fact that she was going to be, if she consented, that the Holy Spirit would rest upon her and there would be a divine pregnancy in which she would then bear that person who would become the heir to the throne of David. Meaning that the time in which Mary lived, it was a low point in the time of the history of Judah. And the expectation for the Christ was that he would essentially be a modern day David. He would actually be the Messiah. He would be a military ruler who would come and overthrow the Roman Empire and give the Jews an exodus from colonialism, which they lived under. And Jesus came in a very different way. He didn't come as a military leader. He came as a spiritual revolutionary who was going to provide an exit ramp by creating a sense of unity with the others who were colonized by the Roman Empire. So it's interesting that they use language tying themselves to David. Unfortunately, I don't think they doubled back to the disconnects between David and Jesus in terms of style, presentation, method, and tactic.
I think that's right. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm going to beg the bishop to hang with us one more segment. Bishop, don't go anywhere. Please don't go anywhere. Let's get through at least part of the next segment so we can cover a few things, and then we will let you go. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA delegation. Tavis Smiley here. On Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech becomes the epicenter of ideas that matter. The Left Coast Forum is bringing together voices that challenge, inspire, and illuminate, with keynote presentations from people like noted economist Richard Wolff, the man who breaks down capitalism in ways that make sense to working folk like you and me, and Dr. Cornel West will be there, the brilliant philosopher and activist who never stops fighting for justice and speaking truth to power and to the powerless, for that matter. So this isn't just another conference. This is where ideas get tested, where the conversations that shape our future begin. Multiple plenary sessions, dynamic speakers, real talk about the issues that impact our communities, and then some good food and a live band. Saturday, October 25th, LA Trade Tech, Left Coast Forum. The event is free and open to the public, but you must register at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can also peep the plenary topics. The future belongs to those who show up and engage. So don't just think about change, be part of the conversation that creates it. The Left Coast Forum is brought to you by the LA Progressive, the Empowerment Congress, Community Coalition, Partnership for Growth LA, Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, LA Care Health Plan, United Teachers Los Angeles, Black Progressive Action Coalition, St. John's Community Health, the National Lawyers Guild, the Weingart Foundation, and more. Space is limited, so if I were you, I'd register right now at KBLA1580.com. Your voice matters, your presence matters. We'll see you there.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right? It doesn't clean as well.
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Oh, let me make an announcement. Attention shoppers, if you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Stop paying for watered down detergents. Pay for clean. If it's gotta be clean, it's gotta be Tide Pods. Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I've never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays. Bishop Tolton's passion, connecting Black Lives Matter and Pan-Africanism, flows from his deep convictions that the global project of our lifetime is to dismantle white supremacy and to deconstruct patriarchy. Bishop Tolton believes that this is a spiritual project that demands highly connected secular activism. Bishop Tolton, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns.
Oh, so good to be here with you.
Gina?
We left off, and I know we don't want to get too far into this until we can have our off-air discussion, but I do think it's important, since we opened the door and broached the whole idea of David being the commander in chief, which of course the president is the one who is supposed to be that for us. But we also have to consider that David was a man after God's own heart. That is his description. And so when you look at the character of David, even in his imperfection, he was forgiven because of his heart for God and his heart for the people. And then you see the emergence through his lineage of Jesus, who is that sacrifice. And as we talked about a little bit earlier in the last hour, we talked about the issue of sacrifice. And so they had an idea, the framers did. And maybe not all of the framers. There may have been a couple of framers. I mean, just even imagine what that whole scenario was like when they had a convention that came together. And even, as we talked about the CBC, with everybody coming with all of their own interests, their economic interests. I just think it's very fascinating for us, because what we are up against right now is, even if we find some redemption in the Constitution, it is on its way out. They want to get rid of the Constitution. And so why is that? Why do you want to get rid of it?
Our friend Simone Sanders over at MSNBC likes to remind us that the Constitution was not a suggestion. As she says, they want to get rid of the Constitution because the Constitution does provide a framework for justice and for the potential for justice.
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution being alive is the reason we were able to wrest power, and Barack Obama was able to sit in the seat in which he sat, because we have a constitutional order. Now that that order does not work, or now that they don't have the same size or share of political vote, and a constitutional order is not something that they can control or manipulate, well, now you've got to get rid of it, because it becomes a tool for the American populace that leans much more liberal, or that supports a multiracial democracy, to now be empowered via the tool of the Constitution. So they built a glorious tool, but now that tool has been usurped by an underclass that is going to use that tool to wrest power. So therefore, the tool has become vilified.
And the amendment process is a special gift, because it allows you to be chronologically and theologically progressive.
Yes,
absolutely. And so, is it too, Jesse, you were, the Constitution better than most, at least the sections that we're talking about here. And you spent time in Congress. Why do we get so few amendments to the Constitution?
There are no longer 13 states. And the process by which you amend the Constitution, 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the states, lent itself to a very different kind of political organization to move amendments through the Constitution. As the country's destiny manifest itself from east to west over time, and we became more states, more fractured, more divided, more political, it becomes very difficult to get 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the states to agree on a framework other than the framework that they agreed on at the hour of the Bill of Rights, which is, the 10th Amendment. That framework really divided federal responsibility from state responsibility with the 10th Amendment. And the history of the 10th Amendment actually reveals that the Negro is the most central dividing factor for the evolution of the United States on the basis of preserving the integrity of states' rights. So whether it is the Nebraska Act or whether it is the Missouri Compromise, we have these processes by which slave states and free states are admitted to the Union to keep the balance between pro-slavery forces and the anti-slavery forces. These forces over time would become social liberalism versus social conservatism, and they would become economic liberal philosophies for all people versus conservative liberal philosophies, conservative economic philosophies for a very narrow group of people who are very wealthy, taking advantage of poor blacks and poor whites. Anyway, with all of that said, at the core of this debate is the history of the Negro. And I think that, man, I just can't wait, Gina, to have the bishop on the show with his thoughtful, analytical, and clear mind to help break down some aspects of this that we might not even consider.
Yeah, and I know, we want to segue into another topic until we can do that. But what I just heard you say was that the amendment process is a difficult one in our current state. And what I also heard was that in that difficulty, and because of the implications, that there's no one who really wants to sacrifice in order to amend the Constitution. And that is part of what your first book was about, A More Perfect Union, in amending the Constitution for the human right to education, housing, fair, equal employment, medical benefits, health. I mean, those are the foundations of anybody's life. And so anybody's family, anybody's community, anybody's society, the nation, and ultimately what people look to the American way of life.
I would argue, Gina, that if those amendments, for example, that you just articulated, were part of the federal Constitution and were not reserved to the power of the states, the American people would have far more faith in the federal Constitution because of the guarantees that such a new Bill of Rights, Bishop, would provide to the American people, that even though America would still weather some very difficult days ahead, as Dr. King said, these economic amendments guaranteeing Americans that quality of life would fundamentally change the social discourse.
There's no question about it. And I think that if Bishop Barber were here, he would agree. And he would suggest that the reason that progressives have not been able to really dominate politically is that we ignore a huge swath of the American population, the poor, those that are impoverished. And if we were to actually speak to their dreams, hopes, and their aspirations, we could actually change the country. But that would mean we would have to give up this myth of the great American middle class, and that we are a country where everybody, is in the great American middle class. And we would actually have to deal with the truth of the realities of our form of capitalism, and looking at and addressing poverty in our country, it would radically reorganize not only our economy, but I think our politics as well.
I think back to the function of the lineage of David for just a moment. I don't believe there is a federal government program that Congress can pass that would eliminate poverty tomorrow. I just don't believe it. What I now know when I think about the function of the lineage of David is that poverty must be overcome over time, over generations, with a commitment by a people to eliminate poverty. It needs to be in a living constitutional document that targets economic amendments towards the elimination of it so that future Americans are obligated to continue the work so that it doesn't have a finite date or just a popular leader who is advancing it or something that Congress can easily overturn. It requires the kind of disciplined restructuring that Johnny Mack talked about of the very social edifice itself when he was referring to Dr. King's triple evils.
But in the middle of that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bishop Tony.
No, I just wanted to say it, but it would also then demand that poor white people understood that the truth is that they're poor before they're white. And that would have to be, that's a radical reorientation.
That's heavy as the Holy Ghost right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there. Yeah. I was going to add as well, and I was watching Lawrence O'Donnell last night, and he had a guest, and the guest has, been in and out of Africa, and he's a Caucasian man.
Yeah,
and he just said that the devastation because of the removal of USAID, is just mind-boggling. That children are being starved, that mothers cannot breastfeed their children because they are being starved. And so when Jesse said that it will take time, and I agree, over time, because we do have some corrections to make. But the truth of the matter is that we could feed a lot of people around the world.
With less than 1% of the federal budget, we'd be feeding millions of people around the world, which was the kind of soft diplomacy, Bishop, that I can only imagine so much of the project that you are advancing globally is actually trying to do. That soft diplomacy does matter, and our care for Africans and poor people around the world do matter, Bishop.
It absolutely matters. When I am in the heart and the belly of the beast in East Africa, I see signs everywhere. USAID, a gift from the American people that buys equity, that buys a sense of cultural connectivity for sure. But let's also be clear, where do we get a lot of the particularly agricultural products that we send to Africa? We get them from American farmers. They don't give them to us for free. We buy it from American farmers. It is a source of revenue for our own people, as well as being an incredible gift that gives us back at 10 times of what the economic cost is in terms of the soft capital that it buys for us. Bless you.
Thank you. Oh, I didn't want to kill my mic before I sneeze, but if I kill my mic, it kills Gina's mic. Gina, I'm sorry.
There are enough resources. And I think people have always known this. I think we have to bring it back to the forefront to have that discussion. There should be no homeless people. There should be no one without education. And we know the vicious cycle, but I think sometimes that people live in a bubble when they're not in a particular community or have never experienced what it is like to be in a minority. And, I know that the Black community is always generally very cautious and loving when we see someone come into our community to want to coddle them and make them feel okay because we know what it feels like. But there is no reason still with the type of wealth and the type of wealth that is now being funneled, because when you said something about the myth of the middle class, I thought, sometimes that may have been the cap for a lot of people to imagine themselves out of poverty. This is as rich as you're going to ever be, called the middle class. And otherwise you have that caste system that has this vast chasm between wealth and poverty.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the case. And I love the point that you just made, that sometimes that glorifying the middle class is also a way of telling folks who are impoverished that there is a ceiling to the degree that you can ascend economically. I think that's really real as well. And I also think that there needs to be a theological rebuke of this economic system. And that's one of the opportunities, again, for the Black church prophetically to refine its footing.
You can't love both God and money. You're going to love the one and hate the other. Is that where you're going with that?
That's absolutely the case. We either are going to be critics of empire or we are going to be stewards of empire. We have to make a decision.
Bishop, thank you for your wonderful testimony and your ministry.
Bless you. Such a pleasure to be with you, Brother Jackson. My dear sister Gina, I thank you for your work and for your
Bishop, Are there any ways in which we can support you in your efforts and your ministry?
Please do visit us at www.icjustice.org. You're able there to sign up and become a part of Interconnected Justice or even donate. Hopefully you'll feel so inclined to do one or the other, but certainly do get involved with Interconnected Justice.
Gina?
When we come forward, we'll have a review of the Jackson Jr. Show for this week.
On KBLA Talk 1580. More with Vitamin Fridays.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Esther Dillard with BIN News Now. Too confident and too cocky. That's how TMZ is reporting that prosecutors are describing Sean Diddy Combs at his sentencing hearing, which is expected to last until late today. While many of Combs' family and friends are inside the courthouse, folks outside watching were speculating.
I just want to see him stay in jail. There's so much stuff coming out. I just feel like he needs to stay.
Prosecutors are seeking 11 years in prison, while Combs' team is seeking time served. It's looking like the government shutdown will extend until next week. Both sides are digging in. Democrats want Republicans to restore funding and protections to Medicaid and Obamacare, while Republicans want Democrats to approve a short-term spending deal. And today marks the official launch of the HBCU Shop, which was created to amplify and celebrate historically Black colleges and universities. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Do you really know what's in your tap water? We believe your water should support your health, not work against it. Upgrade your home with a LifeSource whole house system. Clean water from every tap, no salt, no hassle. Call 1-800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com.
Warranty limitations apply.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay left himself open for relentless second guessing. He took a major gamble on his team Thursday night at SoFi, and it had a disastrous result. The Rams ended up losing in overtime to the San Francisco 49ers 26-23. With 5 minutes left in the overtime, the Rams had a 4th and 1 at the 49ers 11. Instead of giving Joshua Carty a chance to kick a very short field goal to tie the game, McVay went for it on 4th down. Rams running back Kyron Williams was stopped short of the first down, giving the 49ers an emotional win. The Rams were 8.5-point favorites. Dodgers manager Dave Roberts said Shohei Ohtani will be the team's starting pitcher tomorrow in Game 1 of their playoff series against Philadelphia. In Ohtani's last 3 starts, he is not allowed a run in 14 innings of work and has 18 strikeouts. He looks ready for the postseason. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, KBLA listeners. This is Dr. Paul Wallace. I want to discuss a type of eczema called atopic dermatitis, which is often misdiagnosed in Black children and adults. Atopic dermatitis is an autoimmune disorder that can be accompanied by food allergies, hay fever, and asthma. This rash targets the inner arms, behind the knees, and face, but can go all over the body. It causes excessive dryness and 24/7 itching. It's the scratching and steroid use that leads to permanent scarring. I'm enrolling patients in a new clinical research study focused on better treatment options for atopic dermatitis. Of course, your medication and travel reimbursements are provided. To see if you qualify, visit dermstudies.com or call us at 323-296-0048. That's 323-296-0048. There's nothing worse than itching. Let's take the next step in controlling this problem.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
I'm still going for it, even with higher stroke risk from atrial fibrillation, an irregular heartbeat not caused by a heart valve problem. Over a 3-year study, Eliquis apixaban tablets reduced stroke risk better than warfarin, and over 97% of Eliquis patients did not experience a stroke. A first stroke occurred in 2.9% of warfarin patients versus 2.3% of Eliquis patients.
Don't stop prescription Eliquis without asking your doctor. Stroke risk may increase. Eliquis can cause serious and potentially fatal bleeding. Don't take if you have an artificial heart valve, abnormal bleeding, or antiphospholipid syndrome. While taking, you may bruise more easily or bleed longer. A spinal injection increases blood clot risk, which may cause paralysis. Get medical help right away for unexpected bleeding or bruising, or back pain, tingling, numbness, muscle weakness, or incontinence. Aspirin products, NSAIDs, SSRIs, SNRIs, and blood thinners increase bleeding risk. Tell your doctor about planned medical or dental procedures. Learn more at Eliquis.com or call 1-855-ELIQUIS.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Fat Meat Fridays, where we review the week and all of our shows. Gina Bishop William Joseph Tolton. I mean, it's impossible to get his mind in an hour or to get his insights in an hour.
Yeah.
Lucid, clear, convincing, thoughtful. I mean, I just run out of adjectives to suggest the level of thought and scholasticism that he has given to the ideas, to the vision that he has.
And the clarity.
Oh, it's absolute
which
clarity.
he can teach and express, quantify and qualify.
I mean, the Congressional Black Caucus should consult with him. I mean, his critique of the Congressional Black Caucus weekend and where we are in our body politic. I mean, that was an outline for a New York Times essay. I mean, it was just that clear. Gina, anyway, it's time for us to wind up our week or to review our week. Where should we start? Obviously on Monday.
We should start at Moving Mountain Monday. Moving Mountain Mondays is to set our week on a path where we believe we can move mountains and build our faith week to week, generation to generation, and our favorite millennial, the blurred lines of leadership, leadership's message.
He pulled no punches. As he described the treatment of citizens by the frozen water people, that are
known
in
as
Chicago.
ICE.
Yeah, absolutely. The limited rights of an amended in people.
You know,
how about that, G?
That was really food for thought. And that's why we do Fat Meat Friday, because we want to go back and do an amended in people. And so, yes, you're amended in. The amendments are, they are the Constitution.
The
They are
Constitution
just
is
as much as the
moving
Constitution,
whether you
absolutely.
are amended in or not.
But if your viewpoint,
Yeah.
if your heart is given to a nationalism, a racism, a supremacy, then you are never going to acknowledge that amendment and those people who are amended in as being equal.
And I really want to just take 30 more seconds on this amended in.
Yeah.
Amended in. We did not have the Bill of Rights on September 17th, 91. They did not apply to us. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, searches and seizures. They could come in and out of our shotgun homes anytime they wanted to because we were considered a property interest. So it's not until the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment where we're granted citizenship rights. And therefore, what? We are amended into the Constitution. our very existential reality is tied to being amended in. So why do we fight for amendments on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show? Because we have to add some amendments to the amended inness of ourselves. You're not walking with me.
Right. And
I'm
it gives
talking to
you
myself.
pause. No, you're not talking to yourself. You know, you're not talking to yourself. But it does give us pause. And the reason why I say it gives us pause, because are the amendments that came before the amended in people extended as equal once they're amended in? And that's specific to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and to the right to bear arms. Because if you come in my house and snatch me out of my bed, do I have the right to defend my home? There's a whole lot of people in this country, because the Second Amendment is a religion in and of itself to people. And then if we look at the First Amendment, my right to free speech, you know, we're in a place right now where people don't really want to hear this conversation. They don't want to hear Joy Reid. They don't want to hear Jimmy Kimmel say what he had to say. And so, and he's not amended in. But you get what I'm saying. Like, do we go back and extend for the amended in people the rights that came before them in the Constitution?
I don't know how you do that.
Well, we're learning about that.
But we're learning about that. So let's move on now to Reverend Teresa Horde Owens.
Yes. Well, she talked about the Supreme Court and the legitimization of authoritarianism.
Authoritarian.
And this, you know, how the founders would have really felt about a check and balance system that they set up so that the executive branch would never become what they had before they left Europe.
You know, I think what we're learning is that the law applies to some people. It does not apply to all people. And white male privilege is clearly an agreement that they have for a constitution and law that applies to everybody else except them. It's the way in which they've chosen to organize the society for those of us who actually believe, as Bishop Tolton said, in the framework, a framework for justice, or the framework for the possibility of justice. But Trump throws up his hand, Hegseth with his bravado. I mean, hell with that. They don't believe that they are entitled to follow or even honor it. And the behavior of the Supreme Court in this era is going to live in infamy, because the reestablishment of people's really voluntary adherence to the ideas and the spirit of the Constitution has been profoundly shaken in a way that we have not seen since the American Civil War. How you reestablish people's faith in the document, I mean, I don't know, except for by more amendments.
And part of the point that came out of that show was that the money chase is on. You find the indiscretions of members of the Supreme Court who have enjoyed a little bit too much their relationships with people who could influence them by the gifts that they get. I mean, I think that is unprecedented with the Supreme Court.
Teresa Horde Owens set our week on fire, and she continues to be the kind of spiritual underpinning coming out of a weekend for the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, Gina, we went right into the power to persist. A few technical glitches, but we were able to get an extraordinary guest on the program that I was particularly proud of, Dr. Lamel McMorris.
Yes.
Gina?
Well, I just thought that Lamel, first of all, we had a cancellation, and certainly we're going to get Congresswoman Beatty back on the show. But sometimes I believe that the movement of God is just what it's supposed to be. I promise we needed a little bit of hope. We needed a little bit of go get them. And Lamel actually brought that with us. I was very grateful that he was willing to bring us a preview, if you will. His book will drop in the next week or so. You've done a podcast with him. He's very excited about using that podcast to be one of the things that is a highlight of his the drop on his book, The Power to Persist. He offers a brand of Old and New testimony towards hanging in through tough times. And he talks about a lot of situations in his book that are reminiscent to the Psalms, lamentations, if you will, and just being able to be steadfast through difficult times. And we've not seen that, and we are here again in our country and in our space as people. So that was great to have Lamel.
You know,
who
I
is a
want
very
him.
accomplished
I want him, and I
businessman.
know you do as well. Want him back on the show
Absolutely.
for the full hour, because I think he needs to walk us through the 8 habits
Absolutely.
that he suggests are necessary to develop persistence
Yes.
and resilience.
And we can't leave Lamel until we talk about Lawrence Carter at Morehouse College.
Oh, so Dr. Carter, God bless him, who's doing such an extraordinary job and for decades has been teaching at Morehouse College, is really the dean of the chapel of Morehouse College, which is the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel. It's an extraordinary accomplishment and monument to the late civil rights leader. And they have what is known as the Hall of Preachers. They must have a collection of 1,000 oil paintings of some of the most profound Black preachers who have ever lived. And so Gene and I were one day taking a tour of the Hall of Preachers, and one of the largest pictures in the entire Hall of Preachers was Lamel McMorris. And this is before he had his PhD, Dr. Lamel McMorris. So I said to Dr. Carter, this is a Hall of Preachers, but why is Lamel McMorris's picture up there? He said, well, Mr. Jackson, Lamel McMorris is one of our largest contributors to the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel. So let's just say he's a preacher of sorts.
And with that, when we come forward.
On KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Gina Towns Show on Fat Meat Fridays. More when we come forward.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than Saquon Barkley, the NFL's reigning leading rusher. I'm also the NFL's leading husher. Shh, hush up back there. Wow, I might have just set the hushing record. Well, almost. For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
Dude, did you order the new iPhone 17 Pro? Got it from Verizon, the best 5G network in America. I never looked so good.
You look the same.
But with this camera, everything looks better, especially me.
You haven't changed your hair in 15 years. Selfies? Check, please.
New and existing customers can get the new iPhone 17 Pro, designed to be the most powerful iPhone ever. With eligible phone trade-in and unlimited ultimate, any condition guaranteed. Best 5G source root metrics data, United States, 1H 2025. All rights reserved. Trade-in and additional terms apply for all offers. See Verizon.com for details.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has workforce centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project.
Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail, and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? what thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Fat Meat Fridays with Gina Towns. Gina is the producer, creator of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and is a amazing co-host where on Fridays we review all of the shows that we've had this week. Gina, On the Grind with Barbara Arnwine.
On the grind is always Barbara Arnwine. I don't know if Barbara sleeps. But I just promise one day I'm gonna have the Energizer Bunny just roll across the stage when she's there. But let me tell you how serious all of this is and the things that she brings to the forefront. And you have to wonder why you don't hear these things in the news. She's constantly been talking about October 15th as being the day that the Supreme Court will get the first test. And we'll hear some language about perhaps striking down the Voting Rights Act and what that will mean. It could mean half of the Congress, Black folk representing the interests of Black people in this country no longer being there. So, she definitely has us on top of that we should call our congressman. We should show up on October 15th. On the steps of the Supreme Court.
Gina, she also talked about the, which I think the October 15th date could very well swell because a number of government employees no longer have jobs or paychecks. She talked about the context and just how devastating the government shutdown, a protracted government shutdown can be, particularly for Black folk.
And how methodical everything has been step by step. One of the things that I always want to encourage our family here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show to do is if you missed an episode, please go and download the podcast at KBLA, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Spreaker, because there's just so much meat each day that we want you to be able to hear. We're really trying to be a source of learning, discussion, help us think about what it is that we need to do and how we can be a part of the solution.
I am so impressed with Barbara Arnwine and so grateful. She's one of the most connected people in Washington. She's one of the nation's most serious advocates. And just like Todd Yeary, she has one foot in the courtroom and another foot in reality, in social justice and social activism. And so we're so very grateful that Barbara Arnwine is a regular contributor on our show.
Yes.
Gina,
President of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Please always go to tjcoalition.org to find out what's going on.
Absolutely. Gina, on Wednesday, we caught up with Carrie Gordy.
My friend and yours. What a delightful spirit.
Absolutely.
I love every time Carrie has been on our show. He just exudes
energy,
spirit of joy, love, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. I think it's
a beautiful energy.
I could be wrong now, but he just seems very difficult to rattle. And he's certainly had a lot of successes, but he has a consciousness about his life and his privilege being the son of Berry Gordy. I just really am happy for the success that has come from Sunday's Best, his newest documentary on the life of Ed Sullivan and the doors that he opened for Black entertainers. A civil rights leader in his own right.
And he's getting a lot. He gave our show a lot of credit. He was on our show 3 times before the documentary started. And it is now becoming increasingly critically acclaimed. And he came back to our show to say, thank you for letting him have this access and for letting him be himself on the program.
Absolutely.
He knows he's always welcome back.
One of the things that I love that he said is that he got true joy. Sometimes everything is not always about making the money. Though I think he's being blessed in this project nonetheless, he says that he had found it important as his life's work to focus on telling the stories before they are lost or erased. So I commend Kerry Gordy.
And a number of other documentaries are being considered. He's got a number of positive feedback and responses where people are asking him to dig deeper into certain narratives that, well, like Ed Sullivan, we would have never considered if Kerry Gordy and Margot, Ed Sullivan's granddaughter, had not resurrected, if you will, the spirit of the late Ed Sullivan. Dr. Todd Urey on Wealthy Wednesdays. Gina?
Wealthy Wednesdays with Todd Urey is we really have tried very much to make sure that in our second hour and in our weekly series, that we provide an opportunity for us to grow in every way, in wisdom, in faith, in our discernment, and I think it's really important to note the work that someone like Todd Urey is doing, pastoring a church and still staying in the courtroom, making sure and seeing to the civil rights of people who sometimes would not get that opportunity unless they had someone who was committed to it. And Todd always gives us a deeper look into what's going on in the day. And certainly he interrogated everything that had happened this week. And I know that we had a very deep conversation about ICE. And I mentioned to you during the break that I had read something even further. And had we been on, and I saw this while we were taught, those people who were dragged out of their homes in Chicago in the ICE raid, there were 2 budget rental trucks. One housed the Black people that they pulled out of this apartment complex, and the other one had immigrants that they put. But among the Black people that were pulled from their beds were children who were not dressed appropriately or naked altogether and separated from their mothers. And the constitutionality, I can't imagine, that's where we are, that agents of the United States, many will say, well, why are you surprised? It's just the level and the treatment of children and the level of people who haven't done anything. They're asleep. So we talked about the whole ICE situation with Todd, and he just said, watch it keep moving. You never think it's going to happen to you, but this play is playing out and it's not done.
Gina, we have about 2.5 minutes before we come forward. On Thursday, Worldwide with P.L. De Silva, he brought a candidate with him, James Felton Keith, to the program, a young progressive, I think 40-something year old candidate who's running against a Democrat who was offering some insights on progressives, the Mundami victory, that I thought were very enlightening. Gina?
Yeah, I thought he was very impressive.
Yeah, I think so too.
I thought that he really was able to give some context to why he believes what he believes, why he believes that we need to be progressive because things will get worse unless we actually do something. And that's why he's running for office. He's been traveling abroad quite a bit, and he talked about 2 things that were of particular interest because it is our day for worldwide. He said people in other countries are either in shock about what's going on in the United States, or they are laughing at the utter
ridiculousness.
discord,
Yeah, just
and
awful.
buffoonery that is the United States.
Gina, and finally, with our last 55 seconds of the show, Johnny Mac. Gina.
Johnny Mac always. I love the study that you guys are doing on Martin Luther King. I think it's a very much needed segment that you all are grappling with, and it's certainly a learning opportunity for all of us. So I thank you and Johnny every week.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. I'm going to let Gina take us out today. Gina, say it just like that.
Please join us on Monday when the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show will come forward with our guest Ernest Krim and Reverend Teresa Horde Owens on Moving Mountain Mondays. This is Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580,
Wow.
Monica.